Chapter 9 The Charming Kingdom. Alex and Connor woke up on the floor of Rapunzel's tower just after sunrise. They were snuggled under the blankets Froggy had given them, and they used their bags as pillows. "How did you sleep?" Alex asked her brother. "Like I slept on the floor of a tower," Connor said, thinking he'd never take his bed at home for granted again. He scratched his back, and his joints made sounds like firecrackers. They put away their blankets and decided to get an early start on their day. Alex insisted on tidying up the tower, leaving it better condition than they had found it in. "I hate for anyone to think we made this mess," Alex said. Connor rolled his eyes at her and made sure she saw it. "What's our next stop?" Connor asked Alex. She looked back and forth from the map in one hand and the journal in the other. "Well, the Charming Kingdom is just east from here," Alex said. "I figured it would be wisest to go there and see if we could get a hold of Cinderella's slipper." "How exactly are we going to get that?" Connor asked. Alex had to think about it. "We'll just ask if we can borrow it," she decided. "Fat chance," Connor said. "That's like walking into the White House and asking for the Declaration of Independence." Although Connor was wrong about the whereabouts of the Declaration of Independence, Alex knew he was right to be concerned. How were they going to get into their hands on one of Cinderella's slippers? Surely they must be the most prized possession in the kingdom. "We'll have to try our best," Alex said. "What other options do we have?" The twins traveled down the spiral staircase in the core of Rapunzel's tower and returned to the path. They eventually came to a fork, where a new path splintered off in the eastern direction. The sign above the fork said Charming Kingdom and pointed in the direction the new path was headed. "Connor, look at that sign," said Alex, pressing her hands to the other's cheek. "I really wish I had a camera." They traveled down the new path for quite a while without discovering anything new but the same dirt path and evergreen trees they had seen the last 2 days. Connor became more anxious the farther he walked, letting out large extended sighs every minute or so. "Are you sure we aren't lost? I swear I've seen that boulder and that tree about 20 times already," he said, pointing. "I'm positive we're pointing in the right direction." "I've been watching the map since we left," Alex said. "We should be approaching a stream very soon, and once we cross it, we'll be in the Charming Kingdom." Connor sighed again. It would be his last one for a while, and he made sure it lasted extra longer. A couple hours later, there was no stream in sight. Connor was starting to lose faith in his sister's navigational abilities. "This place must be bigger than we thought," Alex said, "or the map is completely off scale." Eventually the twins found the stream. Alex had seen on the map the path went across a small bridge made out of pale stones, and then continued on the other side. "You see, I told you I knew where I was going," Alex said, with her head held high. Yeah, Connor said. "Honestly, Connor, I'm a little disappointed in your lack of faith," Alex gloated. "If there's one place I should know my way around, it would have to be grrr." Connor heard his sister's high-pitched scream before he realized what had happened. A large troll had jumped right in front of them at the bridge. He was short and very wide, with an enormous head. He was covered in matted fur, with large eyes and a snout. His arms and legs were tiny, but his nails and teeth were sharp and long. "You're on my bridge!" the troll shouted. "How dare you!" "We are sorry," Alex clutching on her brother like a monkey on a tree. "We had no idea this bridge belonged to anyone." Maybe you should put up a sign or something," Connor suggested, and then regretted it once it made the troll even angrier. "What are you doing on my bridge?" the troll demanded. "Trying to cross to the Charming Kingdom," Alex said. "We didn't mean any harm." "No one crosses my bridge without answering a riddle," the troll said. "A riddle?" Alex asked, letting go of Connor. "Oh, you're a bridge troll." "A bridge troll?" Connor asked. "Yes, just like in Three Billy Goat Grubbs," Alex said happily. She was so excited to be witnessing another fairy tale occurrence. All of her fear faded away. "If you wish to cross my bridge, you must answer my riddle correctly," the bridge troll said. "Answering correctly and I'll bite your head off. Excuse me? Bite off our heads, Connor said. Steam was practically coming out of his ears. What is wrong with everyone in this place? Why does everyone want to eat us? Can someone please explain to me why this keeps happening? Connor, calm down, Alex insisted. Let's just solve the riddle and then we'll be on our way. What if we get it wrong, Connor said. He'll kill us. Let's just find another way across the stream. Connor, don't be silly. If a simple billy goat can't answer a riddle correctly, I'm sure we can too, Alex reassured. Besides, there isn't another bridge for miles. Connor grunted and crossed his arms. How are you sure that this is actually his bridge, Connor said. I'd like to see some ownership identification before we continue. Alex ignored us. What is your riddle, Mr. Bridge Troll? She asked. May I call you Mr. Bridge Troll? The Bridge Troll eyed the twins and gently swayed from side to side as he began to riddle. What can be as small as a pea or as large as the sky? It is not by the person who purchases it. It asked. The wheels at Alex had been turning immediately. She loved riddles. That's a tricky one, Alex said, pressing her index finger against her lips as she thought. Do you have any other guesses, Connor? Nope, you're on your own, Connor said. You have one guess before I bite your head off, so guess wisely, the Bridge Troll said, doing a small dance and clapping his hands. That's it, I'm out of here, Connor said. He walked off the bridge and slowly made his way down the stream. Connor, what are you doing? Alex called out. I'm crossing the stream, Connor yelled back. No bridge is worth that much trouble. He slowly stepped in the stream and began traveling across it. The water was freezing, but his frustration kept him warm enough that it didn't matter. The water rose higher and higher as he traveled further across it. It's not that deep, Alex, Connor said. The current isn't even that strong. He reached the middle of the stream, and at its deepest the water came just above his waist. You're cheating, Alex said, and then asked the Bridge Troll. Is that even allowed? Can he do that? He isn't the one who asked the riddle. You are, the Bridge Troll said. Connor had crossed the stream, but now it was soaking wet. Alex continued thinking about the riddle. So it can be as small as a pea and as large as the sky. So basically, you can tell me it can be any size. And the person who buys it doesn't own it. So that means someone else owns it, she thought out loud. Hurry up, Alex, Connor shouted. Oh, hush, Alex said. I'm going to say that it must be a gift. A gift can be any size, and the receiver who owns it, not the person who purchased it. The Bridge Troll stopped swaying from side to side and slumped over. That is correct, the Bridge Troll said disappointingly. Here may pass. Alex clapped her hands together and did a small jump. She extended her hand out to offer the troll a handshake, but he ignored it. Instead, he crawled back below to whatever he had jumped out from. See, Alex said, once she met up with her brother on the other side of the bridge, I knew I answered correctly. Connor shook his head. And I'm sure I'll have to hear about it for the rest of our lives, he said. But let's try to make it to Cinderella's palace before sundown, okay? The twins continued their journey into the charming kingdom. They were excited to see different scenery as they traveled. The evergreen trees they had seen so much became scarce and were slowly replaced by large oak trees. There were also vast fields of tall grass, wildflowers everywhere they looked. It's so beautiful here, Alex said. They had been walking for hours and still saw no sign of anything. Connor was practically dry by now. Where is everything? Connor asked. The charming kingdom is a very big place, Alex said. It's going to take a while to get to the palace. It began to get dark, and the twins became very worried. There was no shelter in sight. Soon the moon was their only source of light. They walked a short distance off the path and found a grassy area among the trees that they assumed and hoped was safe. And they decided to spend the night there. Connor tried making a fire by rubbing two sticks together, but was unsuccessful. Now I really wish I signed up for Boy Scouts, he said. It was their first night sleeping outside. Both kept waking up every hour or so to make sure they were safe, because every sound terrified them. "What was that?" Alex asked in the middle of the night. "That's an owl," Connor said. "Or a very inquisitive dove, but either way I think we're safe." The next morning the sunrise woke him. They restlessly got to their feet and returned to the path. "We're running out of food," Alex said after eating one of their last apples. "We'll have to stock up as soon as we find a market or something. I'm so tired of rolls and apples. I'm starting to think we should ask Froggy to pack some flies," Connor said. "Gosh, I would kill for a cheeseburger. Maybe that's why everyone eats each other out here. They just haven't discovered fast food yet." They found a small pond on the side of the path and splashed some water in their faces. We look so tired," said Alex, looking at their reflections in the water. The twins heard a galloping sound coming from behind them on the path. They turned to see a small cart of firewood being pulled by a gray horse. It was steered by a man with a big, floppy green hat. "Let's ask him how much farther into the palace," Alex said, and ran to the cart. "Excuse me, sir." "Whoa," the man said, slowing his horse to a stop. "May I help you?" "How much farther until we reach Cinderella's palace?" "Are you traveling by foot?" the man asked. "Unfortunately," Connor said. "Then it'll take you days to get there," the man said. And Alex and Connor looked at each other, completely exasperated. "I'm delivering this firewood near the palace tonight," the man said. "I can give you a ride if you like." Before he could finish the sentence, Connor had climbed aboard the cart. "Thank you so much," Alex said. "That is so kind of you." The twins traveled with the man for the rest of the day. Connor made himself comfortable on top of the firewood and napped most of the entire trip. And there's my cat. Waking up every so often whenever they hit a bump in the road. Alex, on the other hand, took full advantage of having an actual human to talk to from the fairy tale world. Stop. "What is your name?" Alex asked the man. "Smithers," the man said. "Where are you from?" "Tink." "I grew up in a small village in the northeastern part of the charming Kingdon," Smithers said. "What's it like here?" Alex said dreamily. "My brother and I, haven't been around this kingdom very much." "The charming kingdom is a quiet place," Smithers said. "As many small villages on the outskirts of the kingdom, and many wealthy estates in the center near the palace." "Have you ever been to the palace before?" Alex asked. "Oh yes, I make many deliveries there during the years," he said. "In fact, tonight the king and queen are having a huge ball." "They are?" Alex's eyes doubled in size. She shook Connor awake. "Connor, did you hear that? Cinderella's having a ball tonight. Isn't that wonderful?" "What are the chances?" "What? Oh, that's great," Connor said, and then immediately fell back asleep. "Why are they having a ball?" Alex said. "Well, they had one every month since their wedding," Smithers said. "It's a celebration of their marriage." "What's Queen Cinderella like?" she asked. "Absolutely beautiful. The best queen our kingdom has ever had." Not too many people were eager to accept her when she first moved to the palace, though. Many of the aristocratic families were upset that Prince Charming hadn't chosen one of their daughters to wed. But she's overcome all that sense. Alice could tell they were getting much closer to the palace. They passed more small villages, which grew in size and population as they went along. Cat. Stop. Stop. That's my cat. Alex could tell they was getting closer and closer in size. She was so excited to be so close to people, actual people, who had spent their entire lives in the fairy tale world. She wished With all her heart, she could say she grew up in the charming kingdom. Do you ever find it overwhelming, Alex asked Smithers. Does it ever get frightening living here and knowing that any moment a fairy could fly and by and grant you a wish, or an ogre could run up and eat you? Smithers looked at her curiously. Does such a palace exist where people can unexpectedly be helped or hurt? Alex couldn't think of any. Maybe this world and the world she was from weren't so different after all. The cart began passing large estates. Everywhere they looked, they saw another huge, elegant home. They were all so bright and colorful, with pointed roofs that curved on the sides. More of them made from wood. Some were made from wood, others from bricks, and some were completely covered in ivy. It was something straight out of the storybook, and Alex kept reminding herself that she was in one. "We're almost at the palace," Smithers said. The car began to vibrate as the dirt path beneath them turned into a cobblestone street. Most of the shops and markets start popping on the sides of the street as they travel into the city. They share the road with other carts and carriages. Villagers and townspeople alike walked alongside them and went about their day-to-day routines of shopping and trade. "Are we there yet?" said Connor, stirring his back to life. The cart rounded a corner into a very long and wide street. At the end of the street was an enormous palace. "I'll take that as a yes," Connor said. The palace took Alex's breath away. Palace took Alex's breath away. It was perfectly symmetrical and smooth, and if it were made out of sky-gray porcelain. 3 permanent towers in the middle of the palace shared a base with a gigantic clock large enough for the whole kingdom to see. The palace almost seemed fake. It was just so majestic. It was grander than they had ever imagined. "This is where I drop you off," said Smithers, pulling his cart and horse over to the other side of the street. "Best of luck to both of you youngins. Enjoy the town." "Thank you so much," the twins said together. They tried to offer him a few gold coins as a thank you, but Smithers insisted that they save their money and then went on his way. The twins walked around the town for a good while. Everyone seemed to be buzzing with anticipation for the ball later that evening. They found a small market where they were able to purchase fresh fruit, vegetables, and bread. Alex kept trying to make small talk with every person she encountered, but most of the townspeople ignored her. She kind of kept rolling his eyes at his sister. Everything she saw excited her. "I don't know how I'm going to survive traveling with you if you keep up with this constant state of excitement," Connor said. "It's exhausting, and it's really getting on my nerves." "I'm sorry," Alex said. "We've been around so many trees for the last couple of days. I'm just so excited to see all the people out there." "Ooh, look at that doorknob on that building. It's in the shape of a slipper. Isn't that cute?" After a busy afternoon of sightseeing, they found a quiet hill that overlooked the town, and they sat under the shade of a large tree. The sun was starting to descend, and the twins grew anxious as to night of another day ending. "What's our plan?" Connor asked. "Let's see what this journal suggests," Alex said, and pulled it out from her school bag. She flipped through the pages until she came across the section about the glass slipper. "Cinderella's glass slipper is a very difficult item to retrieve. Her slippers, without doubt, are the most cherished possession of the kingdom. First, you must find a way into the palace. This is rather difficult, as there is only one entrance. One of Cinderella's first acts as queen was to get rid of all the servant entrances, so that when people come into the palace, they all enter as equals. Once inside, find a way into Cinderella's royal display room. This will also be difficult, since no one is allowed in the queen's chambers without an invitation from her. The slippers are on display in a glass box on the top of a pillar in the center of the room. The slippers are not hard to remove from the inside of the glass box, but the room is under constant watch by 2 guards at its entrance. Find a way to be alone in the royal display room and remove a slipper quietly and quickly. Leave as fast as you can, because as soon as they notice something is missing, the guards will close the palace doors and you'll be trapped and taken to the dungeon to be hung upside down from your toenails. Best of luck." "How are we going to get in the palace?" Connor asked. Alice began thinking of a plan, but she was distracted by a long line of carriages driving down the main street of the town toward the palace. They were elegant and colorful, and each was in its own design. Each carriage had at least 2 horses pulling it, a coachman, a footman riding the back, and a number of passengers inside. "The ball," Alex said. "We'll have to sneak into the ball." "Uh-huh," Connor said, contemplating this information. "And what are we supposed to wear? Look at us. We're not dressed formally enough. And I bet we smell really fresh after walking for 3 days straight with no showers." "I have an idea," Alex said. She opened their bags and took out their blankets. She grabbed hold of Connor and began unwrapping the blankets around him, folding it strategically in certain places so it would stay up. Alex wrapped herself in the other blanket. "There," Alex said. "Now we look like we're wearing sensible robes." "We look ridiculous," Connor said. "Do you have any ideas?" Alex asked him. "Do you think there's a fairy godmother hotline we could call?" Connor asked. The twins walked down to the main street. They followed the traffic of carriages toward the palace. The closer they came to the palace, the larger it grew and the more real it became. Many of the coachmen glared at the twins with bewildered and judgmental looks. A few passengers leaned out of their carriages' windows to see what the twins were doing. "Take a picture, it'll last longer," Connor shouted at him. "Connor, they don't know what that means," Alex said. They reached the palace just as the sun was setting. As each carriage neared the front steps of the palace entrance, its footman would run around the carriage and gently help the passengers out. Alex and Connor had never seen such beautiful clothing. All the women wore long ball gowns in various colors, fabrics, and stitching. They wore gloves and diamonds. Some wore bows and feathers in their head. The men all dressed beautifully too, some in formal armor and some in suits with broad, fingered shoulders, French shoulders, and squared cuffs. All the effort and flair that the guests had put into their appearance made the twins feel very insecure about their impromptu robes. They stuck out like sore thumbs. They were the youngest people there, and they were the only ones not dressed in lace or satin. They were the only ones carrying bags. They looked exactly like they were a couple of kids sneaking to a ball. Extensive rows of steps led up the palace's entrance. Alex kind of began climbing them with the rest of the attendees. It was such a climb, they wondered if they would ever reach the top of it. "This world has goblins and fairies, but where's an elevator when you need one?" Connor said. "Connor," Alex gasped. "Look at this." She pointed at a silver star placed in the steps underneath their feet. It said, "This marks the very place where Cinderella left her glass slipper behind on the night she met Prince Charming." "Can you believe that's the very spot Cinderella left her glass slipper?" Alex said, with both hands pressed against her heart. "Absolutely," Connor said. "I wouldn't have climbed these steps again if I left my shoe either." The twins caused quite a scene at the entrance. Everyone was absolutely appalled by their clothing. Alice could feel herself blushing from the way everyone was staring at her. She felt like she was back at school. One palace guard in particular couldn't stop staring at them, not in a judgmental way, but as if he had seen them somewhere before and couldn't remember where. He was standing just a step inside the palace entrance, and he greeted all the guests as they passed him. He wore more badges on his uniform than any other of the guards, and he had a very thin, dark beard. Another palace guard was collecting invitations at the door. The twins began to panic. "What are we going to do?" Alex whispered to her brother. "Let me handle this," Connor said. "I saw this in a movie once. Just go with it." "Invitations, please," the guard said. "Our parents have our invitations, but they're already inside," Connor said. "And who are your parents?" asked the guard snootily. "Who are our parents?" yelled Connor causing a bigger scene than they already have. You mean you don't know who we are? All the guards and guests looked among one another. Connor, calm down, Alex said. What was he thinking? This man doesn't know who our parents are, Alex, Connor continued. I'll have you know that our parents invented wishing wells. How dare you show us any disrespect? Alex wanted to slap him. She looked apologetically at the people around them. They all scowled in the twins' direction, except the guard with the thin beard. He was actually smirking at them with gentleness in eyes. I'm afraid you two have to leave now, said the guard, collecting the invitations. Leave? You're making the heir of the wishing well fortune leave? Connor exclaimed loudly, enough for everyone to hear. Connor, just shut up, Alex whispered directly into his ear. Is there a problem? The guard with the thin beard asked as he approached the twins. Not at all, Alex said, began to backing up, forcing Connor to move with you. They don't have an invitation, the other guard said. We were just leaving, Alex said. Sorry for the confusion. Nonsense, the guard with the thin beard said. I just saw your parents inside the palace. Why don't I take you with them? Alex and Connor froze. You did, Connor said, and then quickly remembered that he had to keep up with his own lie. I mean, of course he did. He threw a dirty look at the other guard. Come with me, and I'll take you straight to your parents, the guard with the thin beard said. Before they do it, Alex and Connor were being escorted into the palace. They were completely in over their heads. Did this guard knew they were lying? Was he now escorting them directly to the dungeon? Or perhaps Connor's lie was truer than they thought, and they were about to meet a couple that were definitely not their parents. Allow me to introduce myself, the guard said. I'm Sir Lambton, the head of the Queen's Royal Guard. Welcome to the palace. Thank you, Connor said. I'm Connor Wishington, and this is my sister Alex. Where are you from, Mr. and Miss Wishington? Lambton asked. Upstate Northern Kingdom, Connor said. Even he looked surprised by the words coming out of his mouth. But our parents have a summer home in the south of the Sleeping Kingdom in a condo in the Fairy Kingdom. Alex's eyes opened so wide that she had to remind herself to blink. Ah, I see, Lambton said with a curious look. Would you like me to take your bags for you? No, that's all right, Alex said. We'll manage. Lambton led the twins down a long hallway behind all the other guests. There were many large portraits of past rulers on the wall, and the red carpet ran under their feet. Alex and Connor were all eyes. They had never been inside a royal palace before. There were so many shiny things to look at. Lambton seemed to be enjoying their excitement. He leaned between them and softly said, You're sneaking into the palace, aren't you? Alex desperately looked to Connor, but he was out of lies for the night. Please don't throw us in dungeon, Alex pleaded. We didn't mean any harm. Connor looked to his sisters with a raised eyebrow. Did she mean no harm besides break into the palace and steal a cherished item? Lambton chuckled. I've seen a lot of youngsters try to sneak into the royal ball before, but never have I been so entertained by such an attempt, he said. So you aren't going to throw us in a cell and hang us upside down by our toenails, Connor said. We stopped doing that ages ago, Lambton said. On the contrary, it would be my honor to show you two around. Really? Connor said. That would be lovely, Alex said, clasping her hands together. Thank you. At the end of the hall, Lambton led the twins through a pair of golden doors into the ballroom. At first, the sight was overwhelming. There were so much things to look at. It's impossible to focus on anything long enough to comprehend what it was. There was so much movement and color. The biggest chandelier they ever seen, with thousands of candles hung from the ceiling above an enormous dance floor. Hundreds of formally dressed men and women filled the space. Some mingled on the sides while others danced to the music played by a small orchestra in the corner. Everything from the archways to the accents on the walls was golden. A grand staircase descended in the back of the room, just behind two empty thrones. Connor knew it would be only a few seconds before Alex started crying. That's so beautiful, Alex said with teary eyes. Is this where they had the ball where Cinderella and Prince mate? Indeed, Lambton said. "I'll never forget it. I was just a simple guard back then. The prince was meeting all the young women in the kingdom in hopes of finding a bride. Cinderella was the last to arrive that night. She entered the room, just as we are now, and everyone stopped to look at her." "How did she look?" Alex asked. "Magical," Lambton said with a smile, lost in his own memory. She wore a long violet dress that sparkled as she walked. I remember hearing the soft taps of her glass slippers as she walked past. As soon as the prince saw her, it was love at first sight. The whole palace could feel it. Suddenly a man blew a trumpet at the foot of the grand staircase. "Ladies and gentlemen," the man said with the trumpet announced, "it is with great honor that I welcome you to the royal ball this evening. Now please give a warm welcome to their royal majesties, King Charming and Queen Cinderella." The guests cheered and burst into applause. The royal couple entered the ballroom, slowly making their way down the staircase. Alex grabbed Connor's arm. "Connor," Alex gasped, "it's Cinderella! It's Cinderella!" Although the twins had only seen illustrations of her, Cinderella was more beautiful than they had ever expected. Her hair was auburn and styled up behind a crystal tiara. She wore white gloves, and a long turquoise gown flowed down around her, accentuating her pregnant belly. Despite all the gold and the glorious chandelier, her eyes and smile were the brightest things in the room. King Charming was the definition of dashing. He was every bit as handsome as any description ever written about him. He had a mesmerizing smile and thick wavy hair under a large golden crown. He could easily have been a movie star back in the twins' world. The king and queen took their seats on the thrones, and the guard of the trumpet blew the opening notes of another announcement. "Let the ball begin," the guard said with the trumpet proclaimed, and was greeted with another round of excited applause. The majority of guests rushed to the dance floor. The orchestra began playing fast-paced symphony. All the guests paired up and began waltzing around the room, each looking lovely into their partner's eyes the entire time. The king and queen remained seated. You could tell Cinderella wanted to join the dance, but her pregnancy was preventing her to do so. King Charming only had eyes for his wife. He was enjoying her watching the dance more than the actual dance itself. At one point, each of the dancing men collected a shoe from their partners and circled them with it before placing it back on their feet. A Cinderella tribute, no doubt. Time flew by as the twins watched the ball. The unborn child Cinderella was carrying must have been kicking from all the excitement. Cinderella appeared to have some discomfort and had been rubbing her belly and shifting in her seat for some time. She eventually whispered something to King Charming's ear. King Charming took his wife's hand and carefully helped her back up the guard's staircase. The guard blew his trumpet. "The queen is tired and wishes to rest, but she and the king welcome you to continue this celebration without their presence." The crowd happily obliged and continued their fun. "Would you like a tour of the palace?" Lambton said to the twins. "More than anything," Alex said. Lambton escorted the twins of the ballroom and down a hall similar to the one they had first entered the palace through. It too was home with several portraits of past rulers and a long red carpet. "This palace was built over 500 years ago," Lambton told them as he walked. "It's been home of the Charming dynasty since then. This is a portrait of King Chester Charming, Cinderella's late father-in-law." He referred to a large painting of an old bearded man with a crown. He looked exactly like his son, but much older. "How many King Charmings have there been?" Connor asked. "We have lost count," Lambton said. "There are 3 currently. King Chester has 4 sons. Chance Charming, Chase Charming, Chandler Charming, and Charlie Charming. Each of the Charming brothers had its own portrait on the wall. King Chance Charming is the oldest and married to Queen Cinderella," Lambton said, and gestured to the portrait of the man we had just seen in the ballroom. "King Chase Charming is the second oldest, married to Queen Sleeping Beauty," Lambton continued. Chase looked exactly like his brother, except he was a bit taller and wore a goatee. King Chandler Charming is the third oldest and is married to Queen Snow White, Lambton said. Cinderella Chandler looked like his brothers, but had the longest hair of all of them. The last portrait in the hallway caught the twins' eye the most. It was hung slightly away from the rest of it, depicted the youngest of the Charming brothers. He was young and had a big smile. A single candle was lit beside the portrait. It appeared to be a memorial of some sort. "Who is that?" Connor asked Lambton. Lambton's happy expression faded away. "That's Prince Charlie, the fourth son of King Chester. He is the long-lost Charming Prince," Lambton said. "He vanished one night many years ago, and no one ever saw him again." "That's horrible," Alex said. "His brothers led massive search parties throughout all the kingdoms, but they never found a trace of him," Lambton said sadly. "Fortunately, some good came out of the search. While on the road, Prince Chandler came across Snow White in a glass coffin. Prince Chase discovered Sleeping Beauty asleep in her castle, and they both broke the spells put on them and were married." "That's incredible," Alex said. "So if Prince Charlie never went missing, Sleeping Beauty and Snow White would still be unconscious." "That may be," Lambton said. "And since his brother took all the eligible princes, Prince Chance had to put on the ball where he met Cinderella. Everything happens for a reason, I suppose." Alex and Connor couldn't stop staring at the portrait of Prince Charlie. There was a sad energy in this part of the hallway, and the twins were especially sensitive to it. The long-lost prince could have been much older than them were they gone missing. Lambton clearly appreciated the twins' interest. "Now follow me. I have something very special I want to show you," Lambton said. Lambton led the twins down another hallway that led deeper into the palace. This part of the palace was completely vacant, and it made the twins more and more nervous as they walked. They had no idea where Lambton was taking them, and they were too timid to ask. They rounded a corner, and at the end of another long hall was a pair of black double doors. There were 2 guards on either side of the doors, and a large stone arch above them with a sign that read "Queen Cinderella's Room of Display." Alex and Connor looked at each other with light in their eyes. They had made it. "Hello, Sir Lambton," one of the guards said. "Good evening," Lambton said. He pushed open the doors, and the twins followed him inside. They set their bags down and looked around the room. The display room was a wide chamber with white pillars and a sky blue tiled floor. The ceiling was domed and covered in golden stars. The room was illuminated by moonlight coming from a large window in the back and then reflected through by a series of hanging mirrors. Several special objects were on display and placed on the top of short pillars and surrounded by thick glass cases. Brooms, buckets, and old raggedy dresses were all put on show. A family of mice lived in a glass case in a miniature replica in the palace. And in the very center of the room were Cinderella's glass slippers. They were beautiful and petite, made from pure crystal glass and decorated with diamonds. The twins could feel their hearts sink into the pits of their stomachs as soon as they saw them. They were so close. "They are so beautiful," Alex said. The slippers had put her in a trance. "I'm quite partial to them myself," said a soft voice that didn't belong to Alex, Connor, or Lambton. Sitting on the windowsill in the back of the room was Cinderella herself. They had been so astonished by the display room they hadn't noticed her. "Your Majesty," Lambton said, "please forgive me. I didn't see you there. I was just giving some guests a tour of the palace." "Quite all right, Sir Lambton," Cinderella said, walked across the chamber and greeted them. "I like to come in here occasionally after long days to clear my head. Who might these 2 be?" Alex and Connor couldn't speak. They were completely starstruck. "This is Alex and Connor," Lambton told her. "Pleasure to meet you," Cinderella said, and held out her hand. "We're big fans," Connor said, and shook her hand a little too hard. Alex couldn't move. "You're like my hero," Alex said to her, and that's all she could manage to say. "Thank you, sweetheart," Cinderella said. "Welcome to my little room of memories." "It's remarkable," Alex squeaked. "Would you like me to show you around?" Cinderella asked. Alex still couldn't move her limbs, but was able to nod. Cinderella began a small tour and took them around the room to each of the items on display. "These are the brooms and buckets I used to clean my stepmother's house every day," Cinderella said. "They are my first dance partners. I remember whenever I was home alone, I would dance with them around the house and pretend I was at a big royal dance. Although I must say, they weren't the best at conversations." Cinderella limped and laughed. Alex and Connor were still in shock. They were in her presence. They were standing next to Cinderella, and she had a sense of humor. "Over here are my raggedy old clothes that my fairy godmother turned to a beautiful ball gown," Cinderella continued. "They're not much to look at now, but whenever my fairy godmother visits us, they turn back into the beautiful ball gowns created for me." "That's really cool," Connor said. "These are my mice," Cinderella said, and showed the twins the miniature palace full of mice. She opened a latch and took a small mouse out of the case. She gently petted it, and it perfectly nestled in her hand. "Are they the mice that were transformed to horses and coachmen for your carriage?" Alex asked, finally finding her voice. "The original mice passed away, but these are their children and their children's children," Cinderella said. "I look after them as a thank you. They have a horrible reputation. Mice are actually very gentle creatures. You just have to give them a chance." Cinderella put the mouse back with the others and walked to the center room. "And these, I believe, need no explanation," she said, and brought the twins to the glass slippers. She removed the case entirely and took one of the slippers in her hand. "Those could have been uncomfortable," Connor said. "They were surprisingly easy to move about in," Cinderella said. "Did your ever feet get sweaty?" Connor went on. "That could have looked really Alex elbowed him in the ribs. Cinderella snickered. "Would you like to hold one?" Cinderella asked him. Alex nodded harder than she had ever nodded before. Cinderella gently lifted one from the pillar and handed it to her. A magical feeling went through Alex. She was holding a piece of fairy tale history. Perhaps the most famous object of all fantasy time was in her hands. She couldn't help but get a bit emotional. Connor, on the other hand, kept thinking of ways to steal the slipper. Alex looked up at her brother and knew what he was thinking about by the intensity in his eyes. For a moment, they shared the same thought. Was it possible to take off with it? Connor was actually thinking if it was possible to unrun Lambton and the two guards outside the door. "What was it like?" Alex asked Cinderella. "Was it like go from being a servant to being queen? Was it like to be saved from a horrible situation? Your life is literally, well, a Cinderella story." A sadness came to Cinderella's face. "I never thought my life would change so drastically, so I always made the most of what I did," Cinderella said. "I always laugh at the term Cinderella story, because if you ask me, it doesn't matter what life you're living. Life never has a solution. No matter how hard the struggles are that you leave behind, new struggles always take their place. People forget that I wasn't liked very much by the people of the charming kingdom when I first came to live at the palace," Cinderella said. "Not too many people were thrilled with the idea of a servant girl becoming their queen. Many people called me the Pumpkin Princess or the Mouse Monarch when they first discovered the details of how I had come to the ball that night. I had to earn the kingdom's respect, and it wasn't easy." "Being a queen has some perks, though, right?" Connor asked. "No more scrubbing floors, or dancing with cleaning supplies, or talking to mice. Meeting the man of my dreams and starting a family is the best thing that will ever happen to me," Cinderella said with a smile and rubbed her belly. "And that is what makes me the happiest and luckiest woman in the world. However, living in the public life is a difficult thing to do, and even now I still find it a bit overwhelming. No matter what you do, you can never please everyone. And that was the hardest lesson to learn. In fact, I'm still learning it." This was all such a revelation to Alex. Suddenly, the fairy tale world seemed even more real than it had before. She never thought she could respect Cinderella more than she already did, but she had never thought about the story from her point of view. Alex set the glass slipper back beside the other one. At first, Connor shot her a look. What are you doing? We have to steal that! But they both knew they couldn't take it. At least not tonight. Not after the kindness they had been shown. After all the magical things that had happened in my life. This is my most prized possession, Cinderella said, her hands still on her pregnant stomach. And she's going to be here any day now. How do you know it's a girl? Alex asked. Mother's intuition, as Cinderella said. She never sits still when she hears music. So she must have my taste and her father's energy. One of the guards from the hallway burst into the display room. Your Majesty, Sir Lambton, your presence has been requested in the ballroom, the guard said very seriously. Something was wrong. What's the matter? Sir Lambton asked. Soldiers from the Northern Kingdom. They come with a message from the King and Queen, he said. Lambton handed the twins their bags, and before they knew it, the twins were following him, Cinderella, and the other guards out of the display room and down the hallway toward the ballroom. Now, how are we going to get a hold of one of the glass slippers? Connor whispered to Alex. We'll have to collect all the other items first, and then come back for it, Alex said. It should be easier to explain why we need it if we have the other items. We've already established trusting relationship with them. I knew I should have grabbed one of them when I had the chance, Connor said. They re-entered the ballroom. All the guests were still, and the orchestra was dead silent. Cinderella reunited with her husband at the thrones. Dozens of the same soldiers dressed in the silver armor who Alex and Connor had seen on their first day in the Land of Stories were now spread throughout the ballroom. Forgive our intrusion, Your Majesty. My name is Sir Grant, and I am the head of Queen Snow White's royal guard. We have some news regarding the evil queen, the leader of the soldiers said. What is it? King Charming said. Everyone in the room could tell it was not good news by his tone. He could have cut tension and worried the air with a knife. Last night, the magic mirror that belonged to the evil queen was stolen from her former chambers. Sir Grant said, the evil queen is still very much at large, and that she has former mirrors makes her much greater threat to all of us. We are asking, pleading if everyone in the Charming Kingdom knows anything about where the evil queen is hiding, that they please let us know immediately. Snow White soldiers filed out of the ballroom. King Charming and Cinderella embraced each other, worried both for themselves and for what the news meant for their kingdom. It was lovely to meet you children, but I must go now, Lambton said to them. He patted their shoulders and then headed out after the soldiers. Many of the guests began leaving as well. Alex and Connor followed them out, down the entrance steps, away from the palace. This whole evil queen situation is starting to concern me, Alex said. I know, but it's not really our problem, Connor said. We'll be long gone before anything else happens. I suppose so, Alex said. Where are we off to now? Connor asked. The Little Red Riding Hood Kingdom is north of here, Alex said. I say that's the best direction to head. I hope we have better luck getting a hold of Red Riding Hood's basket. We better not chicken out this time, Connor said. Gosh, we were so close. He clenched a tight fist. We could just have taken it without permission, Alex said. It would have felt right. I'm so tired of being a good person, Connor said. Despite having failed to collect glass slippers and the abrupt end for their evening, the twins had a pretty fantastic night. It wasn't every day that they got to have such a intimate conversation with one of the most famous women in history. Luckily, the twins found a night driver transporting a cart full of pears in a village to the northern part of Charming Kingdom. They convinced them to let them ride on the back of this carriage in exchange of a few gold coins. It would only be a few miles walk to Red Riding Hood Kingdom from there. Connor fell asleep as soon as they climbed aboard. Alice couldn't sleep, so she decided to read through the journal again. She reached into her bag and was astonished to discover what was inside it. Connor! Alex gasped. Connor jumped back to consciousness. What is it? He asked. He looked over and saw something very shiny in his sister's hand. His eyes were still a little blurry from sleeping, and he had to let them adjust before realizing what it was. A glass slipper! Alex exclaimed, and Alex gestured him to keep quiet so the driver wouldn't hear them. How in the world did we get one? Did you steal it? I thought it was you. Alex's mouth was so wide it could have fit a dozen of the pears inside it. No, it wasn't me, I swear. Do you think Linton or Cinderella put it in your bag? Connor asked. Do you think one of them knew we needed it? I have no idea, Alex said. She couldn't believe she was actually holding one of Cinderella's glass slippers. They both were completely dumbfounded. Looks like our trip to Charming Kingdom wasn't such a waste after all, Connor said. Alright, that is the end of chapter 9, I believe. And I do apologize for being like an hour long because of my cat. Apparently he wants to be on YouTube like me. But I hope you enjoy the video. Hope you enjoy my pathetic cat. And hope you subscribe or like the video or do whatever it takes to get this up and let people know this. Alright? And I hope I see you tomorrow. Bye!